Did Jesus have the same sexual desires that I have? Well, this is a window into some really fun Christology, right? An understanding of who Christ is. And let's begin here. He was fully human. He experienced everything that human beings experience except sin. So really, to answer this question, we have to have a conversation about how sin has impacted the way we experience sexual desires. And if we can enter there and understand that ground, we can answer properly what kind of sexual desires did Jesus experience? Did he experience sexual desires, or is that all just the realm of sin? We have to conclude that Jesus experienced sexual desires, but we also have to conclude that he did not experience lustful sexual desires. So what are we recognizing here? Sexual desire is something very good that God created, right? It's part of the good creation. But what are we also recognizing here, on the other hand? Sin has twisted up that original goodness, and the twisting, the distortion of sexual desire that resulted from original sin, we call that lust. That's what Jesus condemns in the Sermon on the Mount. Remember, if you even look lustfully at another, you've already committed adultery in your hearts. Jesus never looked lustfully. But that does not mean he didn't experience sexual desire, because lust and sexual desire are not the same thing. Here we have to follow Jesus' words back to the beginning. Remember the scene? The Pharisees come to Jesus. They question him about divorce. Is it okay for a man to divorce his wife? Moses allowed us to divorce our wives. What do you say, Jesus? Jesus says, Moses allowed you to divorce your wives because of the hardness of your hearts, right? What is a hard heart? A hard heart is a heart closed to divine love, right? But then Jesus adds, in the beginning, it was not so. This is the clue that we have to follow to answer this question. Did Jesus experience sexual desire? Does he experience sexual desire as I experience sexual desire? In the beginning, it was not so. We have to follow that. If we can follow that, we'll discover the kind of sexual desire Jesus experienced that was not twisted up by sin. So the difference is hardness of heart. Again, hardness of heart is a heart closed to divine love. So what did they have in the beginning? Before sin entered, before hardness of heart entered, they had hearts that were open to divine love. And a heart that is open to divine love is a heart being infused with divine love. And that is the key for understanding sexual desire as God created it to be. And John Paul II, in his Theology of the Body, says, the key that unlocks God's original vision of man and woman is Genesis 2:25. The man and his wife were both naked and felt no shame. Why did they feel no shame in their nakedness? Because they experienced sexual desire as God created it to be. They experienced sexual desire as an openness to that infusion of divine love that enabled them to see one another, not lustfully, not as a thing to grasp and use for my own sexual pleasure. They saw each other as persons made in the image and likeness of God. And erotic desire, eros, was infused with agape, divine sacrificial love. That is the kind of sexual desire that Jesus experienced. Is that the way that we experience it in the normal course of events in this fallen world? No. We experience something twisted. We experience an eros or erotic desire cut off from agape. So what is our hope? What is our hope? What do we do? Where did Jesus perform his first miracle? And what was it? Right? Jesus comes to a wedding where a man and a woman ran out of wine. John Paul II tells us that running out of wine is a symbol of the original sin. It's a symbol of eros running out of agape, because wine in the Bible is a symbol of God's love poured out for us. In the beginning, they were drunk on God's wine. That's what enabled them to love one another naked without shame. There's no shame in loving divinely, right? So what does Jesus do at this wedding where eros has run out of agape, where this man and woman have run out of wine? What does he do? He scolds them, shames them, and says, there's no hope for you. No, right? Why does Jesus point back to the beginning? Moses allowed you to divorce your wives because of your hardness of heart, but from the beginning it was not so. Why is Jesus pointing us back to the beginning? Because he has come into the world to restore creation to the purity of its origins. He has come into the world, another way to say the same thing, he's come into the world to restore agape to eros. Hallelujah. This is our hope, right? We don't, or we shouldn't find comfort in the false idea that Jesus experienced sexual desire the same way I do. Rather, we should experience true hope in the reality that I can come to experience sexual desire as Jesus did through the new wine of Cana. What's the goal here? Well, use the imagery that the Bible gives us. The goal in our sexuality is to become totally schnookered, totally plastered, totally drunk on God's wine. And what did they accuse the apostles of on Pentecost Day when the love of God descended upon them? Everybody thought they were drunk, and they were. Right before St. Paul unfolds the great mystery of sexual love in Ephesians chapter 5, do you know what he says? This is like the framing of the whole bit about how husbands and wives are to love one another and how the union of man and wife in one flesh is a mega mystery that reveals Christ's love for the church. He frames the whole thing by saying, don't get drunk on wine, get drunk on the Spirit. That's the key that unlocks the whole mystery of human sexuality. And the Theology of the Body Institute exists to help provide you that key that can unlock the whole mystery of human sexuality in your life. Check out the link below, click on TOB for free, and we will send you 3 free sessions of our introductory course.